Marketing doesn't change as fast as people think it does. The individual tactics can change, and there's a lot of the innovation comes in the way you leverage the platforms. But in terms of the basics and the scalable side of it, Google and Facebook have been for over a decade the best platforms to market on, and they still are, contrary to a lot of belief. It's still the best places to get returns on your marketing. And so that doesn't mean there's not a lot of other complements and other things you can be doing. But I wouldn't, in 3 years, I assume tracking is going to be better. I think live streaming may be more impactful. It's really big in overseas, but it hasn't really caught on here. And I think that there is probably an opportunity for that. But I don't think that marketing is drastically different than it is right now. I think there's going to be some new features, some new softwares, some new channels to market on, but a lot of it's going to look similar.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we look at leadership and innovation through the lens of a company who is really on the cutting edge of AI and marketing. We talk with Erik Huberman, the CEO of Hawke Media. He's been on the show before, so you may have caught that episode or maybe not. But today, we look at the ups and downs of leadership and innovation. We really dive into some of the false starts that were happening around the innovation that he was talking about. Of course, we talk about what AI and marketing is how they could get combined together. But we also talk about what he was able to do to get it on the right path. You might be surprised by what worked. Then also we talked about the ups and downs. One of the biggest insights behind this was talking about leading innovation. Specifically, people don't work for more pay and they won't innovate for more pay. They really prefer to be comfortable. Our job is to inspire them and challenge them for innovation, to keep them pushing for this. And a lot of people want to be comfortable. They'd rather have maybe less money to just be comfortable. But our job is to keep our companies growing and to keep people growing. And even if they say they don't want it, I think they do secretly. They really want to be a part of something special and meaningful. And if they see it actually live, that people that said it couldn't be done, they're really inspired to keep moving forward. So all that unpacked in today's episode with Erik Huberman. Before we get into it, let me just remind you that if you are on the edge of innovation and you really want to lead your team more powerfully, I offer a free consultation about this. It's really a way for us to understand what's getting in the way of your company growing to the next level. All you have to do is go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Inside that conversation, I will use 10 years of coaching experience to serve you, not to sell you. I say this honestly, I don't need more clients. We have a waiting list, but I do love to connect with our audience. And if you are sitting on the fence here and you would like to know a little bit more about what is getting in the way of your own leadership, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. Now, here's the interview with Erik. Erik, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I am fantastic. We're going to have a great conversation today about leadership and about innovation specifically. But before we dive into that, tell us about Hawke Media.
Sure. Hawke Media have been around about 8.5 years, have about 250 full-time people, run marketing for about 600 brands. Basically, it was started because I found that those that were really good at marketing were really hard to work with. And the 99% of agencies and marketers that weren't hard to work with were terrible at what they did. And so I was like, well, why can't we be the best at what we do, but also accessible? And so through that kind of mindset, started with a small SWAT team of individual experts, like a Facebook marketer, an email marketer, web designer, fractional CMO, et cetera, and made everything a la carte month to month. And that's where we started. And so again, we've grown massively since then and have been able to build out. We have a venture fund. We invest in marketing technology and e-commerce tech, a lot of the biggest softwares that are used in our industry, like Klaviyo and PostScript and Tapcart. We have a financing arm. We have a book on, basically modern marketing 101 and just launched our AI platform, Hawke AI.
Well, good intro, because we're going to talk about that a little bit. Yeah. I know AI is coming on board. I'm going to let you frame that in a second. So other than AI, where do you think the industry is going to be for marketing in the next 3 years?
Marketing doesn't change as fast as people think it does. The individual tactics can change, and there's a lot of the innovation comes in the way you leverage the platforms. But in terms of the basics and the scalable side of it, Google and Facebook have been for over a decade the best platforms to market on, and they still are, contrary to a lot of belief. It's still the best places to get returns on your marketing. And so that doesn't mean there's not a lot of other complements and other things you can be doing. But I wouldn't, in 3 years, I assume tracking is going to be better. I think live streaming may be more impactful. It's really big in overseas, but it hasn't really caught on here. And I think that there is probably an opportunity for that. But I don't think that marketing is drastically different than it is right now. I think there's going to be some new features, some new softwares, some new channels to market on, but a lot of it's going to look similar.
Let's switch gears into AI. Speak to me like I'm sort of a child and what AI really means inside the marketing world.
Sure. Well, it's a great question, because what AI means inside of the marketing world is not AI. And I think that's an important note. It's a great brand, but it's not real. Artificial intelligence doesn't exist yet. So that hasn't happened. It's generally machine learning and other sorts of algorithmic learning that happens, which is what we're using. The reason we called it AI wasn't actually to over promote, it's the aspiration. It's what we're working on over time, that 5 to 10 years from now we think will be artificially intelligent. And so what we built and where this came from, it's actually been fun. So this has been a 7-year project in the making. I was talking to a friend that was head of innovation at Deloitte, and we brought up the topic of innovation. This is one of the guys that was like the foremost thought leader in innovation and corporate innovation. And he basically posed the question to me, what is the Uber of your taxi company? If you're going to be heavily disrupted by a company, what does that look like? And he, then went into, he thought freelancers might disrupt me. Again, this is 7 years ago. He's like, freelancers, that network could be huge and da-da-da. And I'm like, I'm in the weeds enough that I know freelancers are a nightmare, that like managing as a growing business, trying to manage a team of freelancers that you can rely on is an oxymoron. You can't rely on freelancers at scale. So I wasn't worried about that being the disruptor for us. People need somewhere they can go that they know their people are going to be managed. If one of our people leaves, we replace them. If you've got a freelance email marketer and they quit, you've got to scramble. So it just isn't as stable as people are going to want for their business. What I did think would replace us is, as machine learning and AI gets more progressive, it can start to compete with some of the stuff we offer. And so he looked at me and said, well, why don't you build that thing? I was like, that's a fair question. Technology's not there yet, but we might as well start. And so again, this was 7 years ago. I started planning. We had about 3 false starts with tech teams that just didn't know how to build it. But the concept is this. And basically, I wanted a platform that we plug in all your marketing channels and it feeds it through. Dashboards are a dime a dozen. It's not, but start with a dashboard, because we need to have all that data. Because if we're going to have an artificially intelligent machine, we need to feed it that intelligence. We need to give it that knowledge to build off of. And so we have to take all of your marketing data that we can and actually clean it up, distill it, and make it readable for a computer to understand what's going on. So let's start with that as step one, which also, if we're going to make it readable for a computer, you can make it readable for a human. So dashboard that tells you how your marketing is performing channel by channel, what's growing, shrinking, where things are happening. So that was step one. Step two, which is, I think, the most valuable place, this is what we added to it. The valuable piece at this point that's actually technologically available is benchmarking. So many companies, a giant majority of companies, have no idea how their industry is performing against them. And so you're out there trying to fix your marketing and trying to hit certain metrics. And I see it time and time again that like someone's trying to maximize the conversion rate on their site and they're already 3x anyone else in their industry. Not the best, not the low-hanging fruit. They're spending their time on something that's already amazing and trying to make it better versus spending their time on the stuff that is the low-hanging fruit, because they don't have benchmark data to know that they're outperforming everyone else. And they don't have industry knowledge on that because it's hard to get. We now have that. And so that was phase 2 of this that we wanted to build out. Phase 3 was then to build insights. So, okay, your conversion rate's low on your site. You're not doing great there. It's actually 50% lower than the rest of your industry. Here are the reasons it might be. And so, could be your email marketing, could be your site speed, could be this, that. Here are the things you need to look at. And then phase 4 is actually gathering enough data to actually just tell you what it is. Like, your site speed's slow. Fix that. Phase 5 is we're just going to go fix your site speed. These are the broken things. Let the AI handle it. And I think that's a few years away. That's 5, even maybe more years away. But this is all valuable along the way. And so what happened was I wanted to build this. We had 3 false start with tech companies. And finally, a year ago, I was like, I got to do this. This has to happen. We need to build this. We've known we've needed to build it forever. I'm committed to doing it. And as I said that, a company reached out and pitched me on their monitoring and dashboard system that they had made that was pretty compelling. I talked to the founder, talked to the team, and convinced them to let us acquire them and join us and then add all our data and benchmarking. And so it took us a few months, but now what we've launched is Hawke AI, which has that. So you can plug in all your marketing data in real time, see how you're performing against your industry so that you know where you need to be focusing. And it's already providing some deep insights on the things you should be doing to fix that. So automated marketing strategy.
Let's look at the 3 false starts, because I'm curious about what you learned inside of that. and probably the hard way. This is innovation's not going to be easy. It's probably expensive. I don't need to get into the details of anything that you don't want to share, but what did you
No,
learn
I'm pretty
the hard
open.
way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, one thing, yes, it's definitely hard costs, probably close to seven figures in losses just from like what, we'd spend a few $100,000, they wouldn't perform next. And so it's a few things. One is I'm not a tech person. So for me to direct a tech team is very, very difficult. So you need a leader that can translate human needs to technology capabilities. And if you don't have that person, which a lot of times is a qualified CTO, it can be really hard. We can't interview for that. So little tricks I learned over time is have someone that knows how to interview these people, interview them for you, even if it's an advisor, a friend, whatever, get someone else to look at these people and help out. That's super helpful because we tried one tech company, then another tech company, and then another individual, and every one of them had different problems. And I think part of it was avoidable. We probably could have vetted better, talked to past clients, made sure that they had built something similar. We also could have been way clearer on the product roadmap. Again, not tech people. So we're the problem most non-technical people deal with building a roadmap is you say, this is what I wanted to do. And in your head, you've explained it all. But then this is a good example of this. My first company was an online music company, and we had this whole music site built where everybody had their profiles and everything. And we had a music player on it that we had laid out. And when he gave me the fully finished product, I went to click play on the music on one of the artists and it didn't click. And I'm like, hey man, the play button doesn't work. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't play music. He's like, oh, you want that functional? It's I didn't think I had to fucking clarify that, but yes, I would like the play button to be functional. So that's a good example of all the things we dealt with trying to build this over time, where it's I would say we need to capture all this data. We need to capture all these, 10,000 companies' marketing data and put it into a database. And they'd be like, okay, on it. And then a month later, I'm like, hey, where's that data? They're like, oh, you want us to hold it? What does capture mean to you? So yeah, it was being so explicit because things get lost in translation. And then again, that could have been a lack of capability on their side. That could have been a lack of communication on our side. But we just found that we had no experience in building software. So trying to build it. And what ended up happening was the way we solved this was, here's a team that's worked together for years that's already proven they can build something. They're from our space. The founder of that company was a COO of an agency. And so he knows how we work. He knows how his tech team works. They've already built something. So there's a good chance they can continue to build off of it. And thankfully that ended up working out because they're really good.
Now, Erik's been talking about false starts. Now, here's the reality. A lot of people look at these false starts as mistakes, but I want you to think about this. And maybe this is a mindset shift or a reframing. False starts are just learning ways that didn't work. All of it's feedback, all of it's part of the journey. And that's really the key. It is part of the journey. Now, this means for you as a leader, you're not going to get everything right. You're going to try things that don't work and you will get feedback, and it's part of the journey. When you empower others, whether it be an innovation or anything in your business, it's not, your job to hamper that thinking. You're empowering them to truly think about taking new steps forward. Really leading the way takes them down the path of that own failure. So they get feedback on that. And it is the path forward. Back to Erik. The false starts that you went through, in summary, hire better, vet better. It would have helped you avoid this, but you the right path forward ended up being find a company that's already done this and just buy them and make them a part of the team.
Which we couldn't have done back then, frankly. We weren't big enough. We weren't the reason they wanted to sell to us because the upside of partnering with us. They have thankfully, together we made a much better product than either of us could have made individually. So they saw that opportunity as well. And that's where it came from. That would have been hard to do 6 years ago, 5 years ago. We had to build out Hawke Media to be that compelling too.
So as you've got on this journey of building something that never been built before, I appreciate the stages because we talked about this earlier in the week just to try to understand how we would frame this interview. But how were you able to lead through the whole process?
Lead on the past tries or this one?
No, the new try. So you got a person that you really believe in and understands the technology. It can be that bridge between the business side and the ones and zeros. But what did you learn about your own leadership through that?
I would say when you have good people, it's collaborative, not leadership. I don't find myself leading him. I find myself collaborating with him. throwing my ideas out there, some of them getting shut down. He's coming up with his ideas and then meeting where it makes sense and moving forward. I feel like it's more, it's the like boss versus leader meme that everybody puts up where it's like, I'm not yelling at him to do stuff. It's like, okay, I think we need to do this. I'm going to go find this. You do that. What do you think of that? How do, in talking about priorities, I throw stuff over the wall all the time. Like, I think that we should do this or that or this. Where do you think we should prioritize it? Or do you even think that's worth it? And we go back and forth on these things. So it's a collaborative effort. It's not really, I don't see it as, maybe that is leadership, but I don't see myself as leading him. I see myself as collaborating with him.
There's so many different quotes out there about, hire smart people and get out of their way. I know Steve Jobs is famous for doing this. That's kind of what you're describing.
Yeah.
You didn't hire them
on the product side. Like he's working a lot with the rest of my team to develop the product more and more, because my team's managing marketing for 600 companies. Like, I personally know way less than my whole team combined to build this product the way they want it. They're doing it all the time. They're managing in it all the time. In fact, I just found out our whole strategy team has now replaced all of Salesforce data platform with our own on their own accord, because they're like, this is better. Like, this does better for us than Salesforce's Datarama platform. And I'm like, that wasn't what we were going, like, that wasn't even a goal, but it just came up because they've been working together on it and the things that they need. And so, yeah, I think that's 100% true if you can find those people.
I want to take just a moment here to let you share with others that are going through innovation. What are some of the ups and downs that you experienced, Erik, that we could just talk about?
Yeah, I mean, how do I put it? Like, innovation is such a broad term. It's something that obviously every company has to do, is innovate and pivot, and the world changes. So but there's two things on that. One is, I don't think you can force an innovative culture. I don't know that you can curate a culture of innovation. I think we've seen over and over again with big tech companies that no matter how much you tout that that's part of the culture, they stop innovating. I think innovation, it's hard for it not to come from top down, where the top is trying to push for new things and then it delineates through the team to try to look for new ways to innovate. It's something that we've talked about a lot in terms of I constantly want to find better ways to do everything we're doing. And with that culture, that'll trickle down. If I stop doing that or stop pushing that, people like to be comfortable. Innovation can be stressful, scary, etc. So you do have to push for it a little bit, because if you leave people their own devices, most people are not built to want to innovate all the time. Some are, but it's a personality thing, I think, not a cultural thing.
I find there's a lot of patterns inside my work as an executive coach, and just having a conversation with someone the other day about pushing their team. They're very comfortable at the rate at which they're going.
Yep.
The company's doubling every year. And we just talked about this. What is it like when you don't push? And what you're describing to me is like, hey, they would prefer to be comfortable in many cases.
No matter, and by the way, comp doesn't matter. You can pay everybody linearly with growth, I've learned. And they still, if a lot of people will make their paycheck they can make today to be comfortable versus try to make more. And that's, I'd say, the vast majority. There's a minority of people that want to push. But the moment everybody has their numbers, so to speak, where they're making the money they're comfortable with, and that can change for that individual throughout the course of their life. But if you match someone's salary or bonus with where they're comfortable, they're just going to want to maintain.
Now, Erik just said something, that the paycheck does not matter, that people would rather be comfortable. Now, you've probably experienced some of this in your own workforce. Some people would prefer just 9 to 5, and great. You have those people that are steady working on the team. There are some people out there that need to be challenged and be pushed to that next level. You probably don't need to be as pushed as much because you're a visionary leader. That's just natural to you. You wouldn't have created a company otherwise. You'd be working for someone else. But if you want to, really connect with people and have them do meaningful work and have them engage at a higher level, you've got to challenge them. You've got to figure out your own skills and way of doing that. And each person is individual. It's not one size fits all for everyone in this, but it's the conversations you're having, whether it be coaching, whether it's being empowering, sometimes it's encouraging them, sometimes it's being okay to fail. All of these things matter, but people sometimes would rather be comfortable. We get it. But there are people out there that are willing to take that coaching and really do something magical with it. Are you willing to lead that through the process? Here's your call to action. Be the leader that your team deserves. Challenge them when you need to. Learn how to do it beyond the ways you do it today. You've got to continue to evolve. That's my job as an executive coach. I'd love to help you. If there's any questions you have, just reach out. Now back to Erik. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think that money solves every problem.
Yeah, no.
And what we're seeing through COVID, what we're seeing through after COVID, that people I saw something the other day, 65% of the workforce would rather have a new manager than to get a pay raise.
Mm-hmm. Which also says a lot about people's victim complex. I got to be honest. That their lives, that 65% of people think that their life is harder because of their manager, not because of anything else.
I hear what you're saying on that, but
Yeah,
it is a tell that we're not producing solid managers and
I
leadership.
agree with that. Yeah,
There's a big void and gap inside leadership, which I talk about a lot on the show, but I want to redirect us to those ups and downs. Like, how do you manage your own emotions when things aren't going right? Like, you
yeah.
said 7 figures were out the door. We probably could have avoided some of that, but how did you manage yourself through that process?
Though that part didn't hit me very hard. Like I was always looking at that as a gamble, that it was like, I didn't, it became more and more solidified of what I wanted to do with this platform further along. Back when we started, it was, I mean, that's part of where the mistakes came. It wasn't fully fleshed out that I'm like, I think this would be cool. Now it's like very concise and fleshed out. And now we have a product. But back then it wasn't the same. And so that didn't cause a lot of stress. It was annoyance, I say, would be the thing. I'd look at, we spent money on these people. They didn't do what they needed to do. Thankfully, like I've run the business profitably from the beginning. So it's like we still made money. We're fine. I would say when we're not, this year specifically has been tough for most business owners, where it's like, I mean, the market hasn't had this, we haven't had this 3/4 market loss since 2009. Like this is, if you haven't been in business for 13, 14 years, you haven't gone through this. And even if you've been in business for 13, 14, you probably didn't go through this because you were just getting started. So you got to have a 20-year-old business, maybe 18, 17 years for this to actually feel like round two. For most people, this is round one. And this has been stressful. And, that I would say this has been the more stressful year in running this business. Like making mistakes, losing some money on some ideas, taking some gambles, that doesn't stress me out. What's, stressing me out is when you can't get the core function to perform the way you need it to. So like this year, sales has been hard to do. Our sales team has not been performing like it used to, frankly, because the market is not looking for growth. And we're a performance and growth company. That's what we focus on, is growing businesses. And this is what I mean is even founders and CEOs at a time of fear are very comfortable holding on tight. They don't want to grow. They don't want to take a risk. They don't want to go try to build an innovative platform. They don't want to launch their next initiative. They don't want to spend money on marketing to try to grow. They're just like, they say that the metaphor is hilarious. It's tighten the belt. It's like, okay, but you have to breathe. Like, it's so that's what's happening right now in the market. It's been happening for 9 months. And I think it probably will continue for another 6 or so.
That's interesting. And maybe I'm reading between the lines. You don't think that way. You're continuing to invest and double down on this innovation and pushing the business.
Because it's an irrational self-fulfilling prophecy. If you tighten up everything and you stop spending on marketing, your company will shrink. And that's what we've seen. The average Shopify site this year is down 20% year over year, a lot of which has to do with fear post-COVID and like what's going on in the market, as well as a misunderstanding of what's going on with their marketing because of the iOS changes. iOS changed all their tracking abilities for Facebook ads. And so it looks like it's going bad. And if you don't take a step back and actually look at your performance from your own data, you just read Facebook data, it looks way worse than it is. And so a lot of people have made these decisions, they pull back on everything, and then go figure your business declines. So we're dealing with a lot of that this year, hence the market collapse too. And there's probably going to be lingering effects. I do think, again, year over year numbers is probably a big driver for that. So once we get into Q2 of next year and we're talking about 22 to 23 and we realize the world's not failing, it was just 21 was ridiculous, I think people will calm down a little bit. But so back to your original question, the stress of that, I mean, I do everything from work out every day, meditate, try to take breathers, have hobbies, and have enough visibility into everything to know where we're at. Because if I know our numbers and I know things are getting worse, I can adjust accordingly. I can act on it. It's the unknown that fucks with people. Like it's is this going to work? Are we going to be okay? That's when you get stressful because you have no control over it. If you can see what's happening and make decisions based on real data to, continue to adapt based on the market, it's a lot of work, but stress is less.
Thank you for sharing all this with us. We've been talking about leadership and innovation with Erik Huberman at Hawke Media. I really love all parts of this, but really what stands out the most is talking about, how innovation, it takes challenging people, and paycheck doesn't matter. People would rather be comfortable. And I know there's a lot of elements inside here, but I just wanted to highlight that for our audience. Erik, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Wow, what a fantastic interview. I love being able to have amazing, smart people on the show to talk about their ups and downs and the things that they learned the hard way and the things that allowed them to turn the corner and whatever it may be. And Erik is another example of this. So hopefully you got as much out of this as I did. I always take great notes out of these things, but also really learning how to lead through innovation. Leadership and innovation is something that you probably think about. And if you aren't thinking about it, you should be. If you're the leader of a visionary company and really looking to dominate your market, you want to innovate inside that space. All that being said, when you think about leadership and growth, think about Growth Think Tank. Lead with courage. We'll see you next time.